All right, awesome. So we have Chad Mureta here. He's created many top charting mobile applications. He's a really cool guy, and I really appreciate that you spent the time to take this interview, Chad. So why don't you give a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into this industry?
Sure, yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I started off like a lot of people, which is just trying to, get out of the rat race and trying to get my life back. And, I was kind of sick and tired of working at jobs and stuff like that. And, had a really transformational moment back in 2009 where I got in a serious car accident. And it led me to make some very different decisions in my life. And so I basically went from having a real estate company to being in a hospital bed for a while and having to figure out how do I create income while I'm rehabbing myself in my arm. And an amazing thing happened is my buddy of mine came to visit me in the hospital, and there was an iPhone next to me, and he gave me an article about apps and how apps are sort of the big thing happening. And a lot of people think of me as a tech person now, but I'm still very simple. And I'm not a big techie, even though I understand a lot of it now. And so at the time, it was very overwhelming. But I remember being, so dedicated to getting my life to a different path that I decided I'm going to do it. And I ended up outsourcing my first app, Fingerprint Security Pro, while in the hospital, not knowing anything about what was going on in the store or apps in general, or like the whole process. And luckily enough, through different ups and downs of the developer, I ended up getting my first app in the store, and that ended up hitting some of the top charts. So that was sort of my first time, and then I was able to build up 4 different companies, sold them off, wrote a best-selling book, App Empire. Really teaching people how simple it is to be able to do this. That's why I honor you for doing what you're doing. And I created the first emoji app that went on to, it's done over 100 million downloads, and I built up over 4 companies and basically sold them off. And that's been my passion, is apps and teaching people and helping people, and also just, being in there, creating fun experiences.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So how did you get into this, the mobile app business in terms of like, what was your strategy? How did you hit it? I know you outsourced a lot, but how did you exactly get into it? How much money did it cost to do something like that?
Yeah, so I didn't have any really money at the time. I was massively in debt with hospital bills. So I ended up, finding somebody that was from India, and I outsourced that. I borrowed the money. So I borrowed money from my stepdad to get it going. And that's sort of how I got started. The model was very simple. It was a premium model at that time. And again, I didn't know many different models at that time, but it was basically a 99-cent app. And I started figuring out early on, because I was laying down for such a long time, that I could figure out what was working, what wasn't working. And so I had an advantage over most people, but I kept it simple. And I think the total price of that app probably came to be about $1,800 over a few revisions. And it did well over, I think, $600,000-$700,000. And that was my first app, so I got lucky there. I hit it at the beginning. And but quickly, my first month was like 10,000, second month was like 12,000, and then it started going down. And so I had to really learn this business fast, because it would have just gone away. And so I sort of very thankful that I had to go through that to build up that business.
Cool, cool. And what about marketing? What tactics did you use for marketing? Marketing's a big thing that people don't know how to do. A lot of the time when they get into this business, they go straight into programming, the app idea, but they don't really know how to market it. And that's one of the biggest, the most essential things to creating a successful app. So, I always say, like, you can have the best app out there, but if you don't market it right, it doesn't matter. So what did you do in terms of marketing?
Yeah, so lucky for me, and that's a great point. Most people, most developers do not know anything about marketing, and so that's where they fail. Luckily for me, because I was just staring at these apps and these screenshots and these icons, I started understanding more about the business. And that, first step really is market research, right? Understanding really what you have in the marketplace. Who is the demographic? Who are these users downloading the app? What are their names? Like, actually name them out. How old are they? What are they doing? What other apps are they purchasing? And getting very clear with that. And so I was a student first, right? You got to always become a student first, and understanding sort of, why they're doing what they're doing. And luckily, apps are a very impetuous sale. It's quick, right? So you only have their attention for, 10 seconds, if that, maybe. And so I started understanding that and tweaking things. So I said, okay, well, if we got 10 seconds, I have to make sure that this icon immediately says something to their brain. I have to make sure that this title, they understand it and they're intrigued to download. I have to make sure that the screenshots tell a story, because I look at the customer and I know what they want. I know they want these 3 benefits, right? This is how it's going to help their life. Instead of saying this app does 6 things, I'm like, okay, how do I make it interesting to them? So you can connect with more friends. So I give them the benefit right off the bat, and I start selling them in it. And so I got really good at finding that funnel and making sure that anybody that saw those, elements of my marketing materials, I was going to convert them. And I was measuring it. One of the second things that, a lot of people don't do, especially newbie entrepreneurs, is they're not measuring anything. So, they don't go through it and say, okay, well, let's tweak my icon, let's tweak my keywords. And I think I told you this before, but like even on keywords, sometimes I'll go in and I'll take a keyword. This doesn't work as much anymore, but there's all these loopholes in the store where you can go ahead and take a keyword, say it's a Spanish, keyword from a high-ranking English word, and you put it into the English store, and that would shoot your app up. So the only reason I knew that is because I was looking at a sheet and I would tweak it, and I'd say, okay, here's my previous keywords from the past. It's been 2 weeks. Let me try one other keyword and just test one thing and see if that one thing has any effect on my whole app. If it doesn't, I move on to the next thing. And so it's a very methodical, it's an easy business, but it's methodical like most businesses. You have to stay consistent. And with marketing, you have to not only be aware of the market and see what other people are doing, but you also have to test your own stuff out. And so that 2-part sort of component, if you miss that at all, and sometimes you don't know what you have, but it's actually easier than people think.
Cool. So I know you didn't do much external marketing. What do you have to say about that? Because for me and a lot of the people that I know, they were actually able to successfully market their apps with ASO rather than, paying for ads or paying for anything. So in terms of that, would you agree with that?
Well, I think it depends on what your app is and who your demographic is. I think, organic traffic, you want to continue to master that and your keywords, but there's just too many traffic sources out there these days to not take a certain amount of energy and budget and put it towards it. Like leveraging Facebook obviously is incredible. And now with the App Store, like what's going to be happening here in the next few months, you're going to actually have the ability to actually spend money to get your keywords ranked up. So PPC. So, I think sort of the rule that I live by with apps is get your organic first, get your marketing, screenshots and everything converting. So get that basics, you understand it. Once you get that converting and you know who your demographic is and you're getting some downloads and you're monetizing, your model's good, then you can go ahead and pour some traffic on it. But before then, you're wasting time. And that's actually, it's a really good question because I see a lot of people that are doing that. They're running right to buying traffic without even knowing if their marketing materials are converting it.
All right, so one of the last things I want to talk about is outsourcing. What did you do and how did you do it? How much did it cost? And how did you manage these employees?
Yeah, I've spent millions of dollars outsourcing employees. So it's definitely not one person, or I've had multiple teams, and I continue to do that. I started out very easy, just finding somebody from India and doing it directly, talking to them on Skype. And then some of these sites started coming up like Elance and the old Odesk, which is now Upwork. And so, luckily technology we live in, we have these platforms that are self-contained that can give us the people that we're looking for, and can even help us with payment and even track them, you know, as they're going through it and working. So I can see what my person's working on, so they're not going to screw me. And I don't actually, the money's not released until they finish a certain, you know, part of the project. So for us now, like outsourcing has become the easiest possible thing. You just have to be very vigilant upon, you know, who you're picking based on reviews and projects that they've done. So I spend my time on that. I get very picky. You know, part of one of the chapters in my book is, you know, hire slow, fire fast. And it's because you really want to take your time knowing who you're talking to. You know, make sure you jump on a Skype call with them and you see their face, you read their energy, and you ask them questions like, you know, what has been the worst experience you've had working with somebody? You know, like if you had to look at our partnership, what would you say would be the best way to work together? And start getting them to really figure out with your schedule if it's going to work. But I take a lot of time doing that process. And if things start going bad, I'll give them a shot. But if it's not looking good, I'll just let go. I'll fire immediately. So I usually do like a 30-day test or a couple week test or week test, depending on the project, so I can get to know them first. And I let them know ahead of time, like, look, this is my expectation. This is yours. Let's just test each other out for X amount of time, see how it goes, and then we go from there.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I actually talk a lot about that in my course, and a lot of the same topics that you bring up, I go over.
Nice.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And do you have any final advice for beginners that are getting into the industry, how they should get in? You know, there's always this big barrier, just this leap that they have to get into. They don't really know where to start. If you could give like us, you know, some tips on how to start.
Yeah, I think the first thing is just to start, right? Most people, they get caught up in wanting to do stuff, and it just, so, you know, like people that are watching this, obviously they're trusting you, and I do as well. And I think whatever course you have, I think it's great for them to get ahead of the game by doing that. But just grab some information and get up, sign up as a developer, you know, force yourself to do it. Tell people you're going to be a net millionaire. Talk to your friends about it, post it on Facebook, use leverage, get yourself completely committed. It's like, you know, when you sign up for a class and, you know, and then you kind of forget about it, and then you show up to school and, oh man, I have this class I got to go to. It's like you've committed and you're going to see it through. You're going to go through it. And you have to figure out for you what's going to allow you to show up. Yeah, there's so much information out there. Apps are obviously hot, and they're only going to go into everything else that's happening, VR and apps on TVs. And I mean, it's a great place to start if you're really going to want to make some good passive money going into the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chad, for all your information, all your advice. It's really awesome. You have an amazing story. So I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome. Yeah, thank you. Everything that you're doing, my props to you. Keep it going.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Take care.